Hello everyone, we're back in the fourth video of the lecture 3 about leisure health and well-being, and we're going to talk about leisure and intellectual well-being here. Again, taking the lifespan perspective, beginning with the children, textbook says that through play, again, play is very important. Children engage in imaginative, creative activities, which helps them develop cognitive, like brain, thinking abilities, as well as brain growth. This play is basically, it's imaginative and creative because it's unstructured. There's no rules sometimes, and just you can do, you have to think about, what to do, basically. Also, physical activity is positively related to cognitive functioning among adolescents as well. There's research for that too. What about older adults? Maybe you know this type of game. It's called a brain training, this one, and I think it was played on a Nintendo DS. It's kind of old-fashioned. I know we don't do that anymore. But I wasn't that generation. I was a little older than that even. But it came out when I was still in Japan, and Nintendo is a Japanese company, so it kind of started off in Japan. And it got really popular. And back in time, like 10, 12 years ago, many of us will buy this as a birthday gift to our grandparents, hoping that that helps their, cognitive abilities, I guess. And actually, research, actually suggests that there is some positive benefit of these leisure activity in terms of cognitive ability among older adults, maintaining and improving them. Textbook even says that even under extreme circumstances of brain dysfunction, such as, for example, dementia, leisure continues to be important in maintaining health. Dementia is a broad category of symptoms, and it's not a disease per se, impairment per se, but something like Alzheimer's disease, for example, goes into this camp. And in one study, I think juggling for 6 weeks, I think it was also older adults with the dementia, led to brain growth. Just in 6 weeks. I mean, it's not that whole lot, right? Juggling, like tossing stuff. Yeah, I can do 3 in one hand anyway. And the researcher suggested that any new or novel activities that is practiced intently, with a lot of attention, focus in it, would have the same effect. Speaking of that, a great example that I know is this person, famous on a YouTube. She is a 90-year-old, yes, you heard it right, 90, not 19, 90-year-old game-playing YouTuber. So you can check her video out, and there's an English version of it too, so it's funny. She's Japanese, by the way, too. And she played a whole bunch of new games. Like, for example, what is Grand Theft Auto or something like that? Yeah, she plays that. What was war? Something related to war. Anyway, she plays a lot of things. You can watch this YouTube video, which is not so much about her playing, but also she talking about what game means to her. So I want you to quickly watch that. It's like 4 minutes. In a note, how she tries a new action game. Action games were new to her. She played game like 40 years in her life, but from really like very first Nintendo kind of thing, which is crazy cool. I played that too. Now, recently she changed to these, online action, multiplayer action games, and that's new to her because she thinks that's good for her, her brain and all. And also social interaction. And note also, realize how intently she plays. She says, for example, she's very into the game, right? She's very focused. And also, she talks about how, how she feels when she fails in a mission and stuff like that. It's very, very intently played as well. So there's a great example. She's a 90-year-old, man. And she plays some of the games that I play too, and she's good. She's not bad. Right. And then finally, my colleagues and I also did research about showing this video clip. You can check out that video clip from this link, I think, still. And it's basically a combination of simple nature photographs and classical music. And it's kind of nice, recreational, enjoyable, pleasant to watch. And we show this video, give or take a little less than 10 minutes, to older adults with a dementia at our memory care unit. It's kind of facility down in the United States. And we kind of observed their, emotion, we measured their emotion before and after. We observed their social behaviors before and after. What we found was interesting. There was a significant increase in tranquility, like relaxation after watching this video. There was a decrease in behavioral issues, such as less yelling. There was also increase in sociability, like being nice to their caregivers, not throwing stuff. Sometimes they get confusion and aggression comes out, and they're kind of be violent to caregivers, but they became very sweet after this video intervention. So even again, going back to Ch3's statement, even in extreme brain dysfunction situation, leisure activity could have very positive impact on their intellectual cognitive well-being. However, we have a bit of a problem again in terms of leisure intellectual well-being. For example, in the United States during the 90s and the 2000s, children have lost 8 hours of free self-initiated play per week. That's a lot of hours per week. And mostly because of their parents' working condition. Many parents, there were more single parents during that time. They started to, of course, they had to work. So there's nobody at home basically taking care. Double income parents, both parents started to work. So those, children's play had to be outsourced, done by a professional basically, and structured, And there's a lot of regulation rather than, totally free and unstructured, such as summer camp, organized sports. Maybe you have experienced those things. I didn't have the data in terms of Canada, similar data, but I would assume a very similar thing here in Canada as well. How about, what was your childhood experience? Did you get to do a lot of free play, or did you go to like summer camp or after school program, organized sports type of thing where there was a coach or there was a leader or there was, some volunteer that, organizing to an extent? How was it? And that's a problem, by the way, because as we talked in the beginning, free play is an important source of us to be, us to learn how to be imaginative, creative, which helps our brain development and intellectual well-being. So that may be a big problem. More importantly, this question, is all leisure good for our intellectual health? And obviously not. One of the obvious examples is alcohol consumption. Previously, we thought that, if you drink too much, that's not good. It's called a binge drinking, Sometimes we do that. It tends to be a culture in a college, life. That's not good. But previously, we thought that, some people thought that, just a little bit, just a 1 glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine per day, per night, it's okay. It's even good because it will relieve your stress. It makes you sociable. It's good. Now, in 2017, there's this big study of a lot of people over time, came out from UK, I think. And what they found was, to me, it was a bit of sad, that even moderate alcohol consumption, I think we're talking about actually a few glasses, 1 or 2 glasses of alcohol, or the alcohol consumption was pretty low here. Even that caused brain shrinkage, potentially. It was a risk factor for brain shrinkage and cognitive function decline as well. And that's leisure, I guess, right? Alcohol consumption, for the most part. It's freely done, usually. And often it's intrinsically motivating. It's fun to do. It's nice to do. So there you go. What about other examples? Can you think about any other types of leisure that can be potentially harmful for our intellectual, cognitive health and well-being. And finally, we're at this leisure and emotional well-being. Once again, starting from the children learn their emotion management through play. For example, chapter talk about children can cope with their anxiety once they feel like anxious in a certain situation, scary story. They use their fantasy, imagination, and put the kind of, humorous, fun spin on it so that, they can cope. It's no longer so anxious, or anxiety sort of causing, right? Children also develop what is called internal locus of control through manipulating their environments. And that's emotionally good. What is locus of control? It's a location, perceived location, or source of control that influence your life events. So who gets to control things? Is that you or something else? If it's you, if you think it's you, then let's go to internal locus of control. If you think it's outside of you, like other people, the environment, the luck, for example, then that's external locus of control. Research repeatedly shows that basically having internal locus of control is good for your emotional health and other things as well. Chapter talk about this, something called adventure playground in the right side picture, movement. It's basically, instead of, providing all the fancy equipment that are given, let children make something, just like maybe there's woods, there's some almost like a garbage looking stuff, and kids can be creative and imaginative and put stuff together, cut them off, and they create their own space. They're manipulating, they're creating and changing their environments, which helps them to believe that to an extent, they are the source of the control in this world, which is very important emotionally for them. What about adolescents and young adults? Most of you guys. Research shows that campus recreation programs, such as intramural sports, cultural events, are very important, are possibly related to lower anxiety, right? And positive emotionality, like happiness, satisfaction among college students. For those of you for first year, maybe you haven't been to our campus yet. We do look forward to welcoming you here at the campus. I personally look forward to, saying hi to you in person. This is good. I like this campus. There are so many, our faculty actually offers campus recreation in this university, and they offer so many good programs and facilities, and I personally keep enjoying too. I play badminton here in a campus and community recreation, so you may see me playing badminton in the future. And if you do, just leave me alone. There's nothing to watch, and that's cool. But in the past, when I was a student here, I used the gym, which is pretty now good. There's a pool, swimming pool, 2 of them. I like it too. There's a sauna in a locker room, the steamy, hot area. I like that as a Japanese. There's also a wall climbing area, which is very also new too. So you may enjoy that too. So there's a lot of programs and services on campus. You may want to take a look at that too. Or maybe you're using it already if you've been here a while. What are you using? Does it really help you in terms of, for example, lowering anxiety, positive emotionality? Think about that. That's it. But then how? Like which one? What do you think is the key? What about middle-aged adults and their leisure and emotional well-being? There's one study done by Manel, Walker, and Ito, and they studied Edmonton workers, mostly middle-aged. They studied the relationship between emotions, leisure, and work. They measured various types, different kinds of emotions according to what is called a circumplex model. Yeah, when you get a job, you hit those moments sometimes, you go crazy. That's very emotional, folks. Work can be very emotional. This is the circumflex model based on which they measured emotion. You don't have to remember it, but to understand, you have to understand the next slide result. For that, I just give you background knowledge here. So this model basically map different kinds of emotion based on the two factors. One is this positive, negative on a horizontal line, right? That's very straightforward. The other one is high arousal to low arousal, right? High arousal means, emotion that you feel like your heart is pumping. Low arousal means like it's calming more. So 2 by 2, so there's 4 dimensions, right? So starting from the right top, HAP means high arousal, positive, HAP emotions. Things like, for example, elation, excitement, those things go in here. Below that is LAP, that's low arousal, positive, peacefulness, serenity, relaxation, sorry. Left to that, LAN, low arousal, negative, sluggishness, dullness, those things, boredom. At the left top, HAN, high arousal, negative, such as fear, anxiety, nervousness comes in here. So these are 4 types of emotion they measured. And here's the result. And I want you to go through this table with you. So what that means, first of all, they measured what's your ideal of emotional level. And now you may remember that you heard this before. Yes, you did actually in a previous chapter. And back in the time, we only talked about low arousal, positive, relaxation specifically. Right now we're seeing the entire result. So what's your ideal level from 1, not at all, to like 5, almost always you want to feel it? Where you are in terms of 2 things. First of all, HAP, LAP, that's positive emotion. People average around 4, right? 4 out of 5, that makes sense. It's a positive thing. They want to feel more. Now, in terms of actual emotion, like how much you're actually feeling, how often you're feeling in your work, because these people are workers and a lot of middle-aged people have work. It's around 3.2, okay? So that means not that bad, but there's still a gap between what they actually feel in a work and what they want to feel, ideally speaking. And here comes in the leisure. In a leisure, actually, they feel around 3.7 to 4.0, so it's closer, significantly more closer to the ideal level. Specifically for relaxation, that's really close to the ideal level. So this is evidence to suggest that yes, leisure is beneficial emotionally for middle-aged worker compared to at least work. What about negative emotion? Same thing. From 1 to 5, how much do you want to feel, ideally speaking? 1.4, 1.5, because it's a negative thing. You don't want to feel that much. Makes sense. Now in work, it's not that bad, I guess. It's actually not as bad as I would expect. I love my job, but I don't think, this is a very special job, being professor, I think. There are a lot of different jobs that can be more stressful. But this is apparently not that bad. But still, there's a gap between, where they want to be ideally and their work actual emotion. And if you look at the leisure, it comes actually way it's significantly closer to the ideal level, especially like higher levels of negative. It's even lower than ideal level anyway. So again, it's the same thing. Even negative emotion, even in terms of negative emotion, leisure is a space where you can get the benefits compared to work for middle-aged people. And that's how we interpret the results. And you need to be able to do that as well. Now, what about more of older adults? There are changes in continuity in leisure to cope with age-related life events, such as, again, bereavement, losing your partner, which is a horrible thing, but it does happen. Illness tends to happen more in older age. There are 3 major theories in our field coming from what is called gerontology, a study of older people. We adopted it, some of the theories we created in our field. One is mentioned in your chapter, continuity theory. According to this theory, despite everything going on, life events, you want to continue, keep doing what you do in terms of leisure over time as much as possible, which will help you sustain your identity, your social relationship, which in turn ultimately maintain your well-being as well, emotional well-being. Okay, so keep doing that same thing, continuity, that's what it is. And if you think about it, maybe that's what a lot of people do, maybe your grandparents. The second theory is a little different. It's called selective optimization with compensation, SOC. And this theory is specifically about older adults, you know, maybe they're experiencing some decline in some resource, maybe it's their body and physicality, maybe that's their social networks, whatever that might be. So eventually they have to make a decision, they have to drop some leisure activity. When they do, this theory says that you should prioritize emotionally attached activity or personally meaningful activity. Keep them while dropping not so important activities. Okay, it sounds obvious, but some people don't do that. Some people don't think about it. And this often means older people tend to want to keep activity done with their family, people that are important to them, often grandchildren. You want to keep those activities probably. And maybe want to give up some of the activity that are more new, not so important things. The final theory, which kind of goes again, you know, go to a very different direction, it's called an innovation theory. It says that even for older adults, it's very important to expand and keep expanding their leisure repertoire or variety of leisure activities. So keep adding a new activity, basically, which will enhance and maintain their emotional well-being. Yes, this theory is proposed and they're tested by Israeli researcher. Her name is Garrett Nimlod, and it's one of those, it's well supported as well. Yes. So we tend to have this stereotypical idea that if you're old, you're not doing the new things. But again, as you can see in the case of 90-year-old grandma who plays, you know, YouTuber who does video game, doing something new is actually important. She actually does speak to that too. And this theory helps explain why that might be the case. Innovating yourself, the part of your identity, new aspect of who you are, develop a new perspective and new relationships through different leisure activities is important, even for older adults. So there are 3 different theories. Which works best? That's a very important question. I've never seen anything that tested that directly, compare them directly. Usually people use one of them. But I think it may depend on the situation. If older people are facing some declines in their resources, maybe the SOC theory is the way to go. Or maybe you still have the vitality and all, maybe innovation is a good thing to do. Finally, is all leisure good for our emotional health? No, probably not, right? Well, definitely not. And now, if I click this, it doesn't show up anything, you know, there's nothing there. I left it intentionally blank so that I want you to critically think, at least here, and think about example, and being able to explain why this is a good example of showing potential negative, harmful impact of leisure on our emotional health. And you should be able to do that for a different aspect of well-being and health as well. So now this is the end of chapter 3. Here we go. Some of the takeaway main points of this chapter. Can you identify benefits of leisure in terms of different aspect, specific subdimension of well-being? We talked about physical, social, intellectual, and emotional well-being. Can you make recommendation and justify them if I give you a scenario of someone in a specific age group, maybe, and a situation? Oh. And can you critically think of negative impacts of leisure on our well-being? specifically in relation to those 4 dimensions: physical, social, intellectual, and emotional. And that's very important. We talked about a lot of positive things about leisure, and it's true that there's a positive benefits. Research shows that too. But at the same time, there are different negative effects as well. And it's important for us, leisure students, to understand both. Okay, so I want you to be able to do that. All right. So this is the end of chapter 3, and I will see you next time. Bye now.